year ago today. So a little backstory to that is pretty normal. I started out this cute little chubby face baby with like 3 chins. And continued to have a happy childhood. Very cute. I know what happened. No. Right about this age, though, I started becoming ill and didn't know what was happening to me. I was in 5th grade, about 9 years old, and was wetting the bed, couldn't get enough to drink, didn't want to eat, was tired all the time. I slept through going to the zoo with my parents. I slept through most of being in Wisconsin Dells during the summer. Who does that? And a simple trip to the pediatrician's office and a simple finger poke confirmed that I was type 1 diabetic. Now, when the doctor told my mom that, she started crying, and I remember it vividly. And I was sitting on the exam table, and I had no idea what that meant. But I knew that my mom was sad, and it broke my heart. I was in the hospital for a week, learning how to do insulin shots, check my blood sugar, how to count carbs, how to do enough insulin to cover the carbs I was eating, what it meant to have to adjust for exercise and being an active kid. And that went okay. I was responsible for all of it. It was all on me. I was told that I had to do it all myself and not my parents doing it for me. So I learned quickly, and it was just going to be the way life was. Well, about middle school age, awkward with braces, I decided I did not want to be a diabetic. I wanted to be normal like all of my friends. So that meant not taking my insulin, that meant not checking my blood sugars, that meant eating whatever I felt like eating. It landed me in the ICU for a week, almost on my deathbed. So I learned very quickly that's not what you want to do. You don't want to be like everybody else. You want to be yourself and take care of yourself because it can result in something very scary. Fast forward several years, awkward high school, teenage years when nobody else had to deal with it. The insulin made me gain weight. I wasn't happy with having to be a diabetic girl. I was sick of eating angel food cake for every birthday. It's gross. I won't touch it now. Made it through high school, made it through college. Met my wonderful husband over here, Ben. Stand up, Ben, or wave. We got married, and about 8 months after that, Ben became really ill. We found out that he had congestive heart failure. So he was treated with medications right up until about 2 years ago in January, when the medications were no longer working. His congestive heart failure was terrible. So he was hospitalized and waited and listed for a heart and liver transplant. We found out that his liver had been damaged by the congestive heart failure, and now he needed both to happen at the same time. So UW Hospital decided to take on Ben's transplant, even though they had not done a heart and liver transplant simultaneously before. So they took on Ben's case, and after 17 hours of surgery, he was a new man. Well, he looked like it. He didn't wake up for 3 days after. So, and that was hospital stay. That was our first hospital stay. And he was sent home after 13 days and right back in the hospital 4 days later with some rejection. And another 70 days in the hospital while they tried to figure out why his medications wouldn't get regulated. At that time, I was sleeping in the recliner next to Ben in his hospital room. And on day 70, we were discharged to go to the Restoring Hope Transplant House. We were both a little hesitant because we didn't know what we were walking into. So it's scary, you don't know what to expect. What if we didn't like the people that were there? What if it was weird to share a bathroom with other people? What if we just didn't get along with everyone? And as soon as we walked in, we knew that wasn't going to be the case. We were were greeted with open arms from Eric and great big smiles on all the guest faces. I made dinner that first night because after 70 days in the hospital eating cafeteria food or takeout food, a home-cooked dinner sounded really great. So that went well, and a bunch of us gathered around the table and talked and shared stories, and that was amazing. We ended up being there for 10.5 months while they tried to work with Ben's medication levels and his metabolism of them. And while we were there, a young lady came from Connecticut. She was at the top of the list for pancreas transplant. Her name was Jen, and she was number 1 on the list, so she came to stay at the transplant house waiting for her call. She and I got to talking one night, and we're discussing the complications from diabetes, what it meant to be diabetic growing up, what it was doing to our bodies, how scary it was to know that someday that would probably take our lives. She was inspirational because she told me pancreas transplants were possible. I had no idea. My endocrinologists had never mentioned to me that pancreas transplants were something that happened and that they were an option for treating diabetes. She gave me her transplant coordinator's information and told me that at some point when I was ready, since I was Ben's caregiver, that I could call her transplant coordinator and just find out some more information about it. Well, I did. It took a while for Ben to feel healthy again, and during that time I lost vision temporarily in my right eye. I had been getting injections for vision loss every 4 weeks for 2 years, but while I was here being caregiver, I didn't take very good care of myself. And so I lost vision temporarily in my right eye. Cindy encouraged me to go to the doctor, even though I didn't want to. And we found out that it was a hemorrhage in my eye that was causing the blindness. The bleeding was causing the temporary blindness. It happened a second time, and that was the push that I needed to really move forward. Ben was actually in the hospital another time, and during that time we were just sitting there and he was trying to get his medications regulated. I called the transplant phone number and talked to someone, thinking that it was just going to be getting information. However, that quickly changed, and I the next day started blood tests and different exams to hopefully be presented to the board, the transplant board, to be considered for pancreas transplant. That all happened within a few days, and the last thing I needed to have done was I needed a dental exam to make sure that I didn't have any infections in my mouth that would be a problem after transplant. Well, not being from Middleton or Madison, I had no idea what I was going to do because Ben and I needed to be here. So a very wonderful, caring woman named Cindy Herbst called some dental offices in Middleton and explained the story of how I was being kept from evaluation for a pancreas transplant because I needed a dental exam. Wouldn't you know, the next day they had an opening and they were going to see me. Just simple as that. I got a clean bill of health from the dentist, and the next week I was put on pancreas transplant list. I was told I was number 2 on the list for my blood type, and that was on a Thursday. The following Monday, I got a call saying there was a potential pancreas for me. The number 1 person on the list had declined surgery for whatever reason, so I was now the number 1 person on the list. Imagine my surprise. I didn't have my family here, just Ben, not just Ben, but it was sorry. We're very close with family.
Use
so
that ship.
It was hard to only have one family member with me to help celebrate when I got the news. So what did I do? I ran outside in the beginning of March in my pajamas and my slippers and a coat to the driveway at the transplant house to to tell Cindy, who was shoveling in the driveway, that I had gotten the call. I thought she might come running to hug me at first because that was big news, but she was so focused on the fact that I needed to get to the hospital, she started shoveling like a crazy person. She thought I needed to get out of the driveway that moment and go to the hospital. I've never seen anyone shovel that fast. Once I told her that it was not happening that day, she came over and gave me a great big hug, which is exactly what I needed because normally it would have been my mom, but she wasn't here. She was back in La Crosse, 2.5 hours away. So Cindy took the place of my gentle mom and celebrated with me the news that I was getting a pancreas. That was on a Monday, and the following Wednesday night, sitting around the transplant house, around the table with a bunch of guests, I got the phone call that said I needed to be at the hospital the following morning at 5:30 for a pancreas transplant. There was a lot of celebrating, a lot of hugging. Eric even videoed it for me so I could look back. I didn't react the way I thought I was going to. I said a lot of okays, and not much else. And the next day reported to the hospital and had my pancreas transplant. It was amazing. 3 hours of surgery, not even. I received a pancreas, and my pancreas started working even before I left the operating room. And it was already regulating my blood sugars. After 28 years, I no longer had to do insulin, check my blood sugar, count my carbs, worry about exercising too much and going low, worry about having a low blood sugar in the middle of the night and slipping into a coma and never waking up. I didn't have to worry that more of my body would be damaged by diabetes.
You could eat frosting straight out of a container.
Yes.
That really happened.
Eric may have caught me taking a spoonful of frosting out of the container after I frosted the cupcakes and eating it straight off the spoon. It was kind of the size of an ice cream spoon. It doesn't happen often, but it's nice to have the flexibility to every once in a while have a piece of pie, have regular birthday cake on my birthday, and not have to worry about what it's going to do to my blood sugars or that it may be hurting me. So, I just want to thank all of you because you helped with the transplant house and helped with funding for Ben and I to be able to stay 10.5 months at the transplant house while we both recovered from transplant surgery and met so many wonderful, encouraging people that are now lifelong friends, and we couldn't have done it without your help. So I want to thank you sincerely, and I know Ben does as well.
We're gonna trade places. If I don't cry first, it'll be a miracle. So I'm Joe. I came down 4 months ago with a good friend of mine who was diagnosed with cancer. 5 years ago she was diagnosed, and we had been traveling to lots of different hospitals, Mayo, Stanford. We went to Florida, we went all over the place, looking to see what we could do for her very rare cancer to be treated, and it's a surgical cancer. And everybody told us, no, we're not gonna do anything for you. And then we got a phone call from here, from Wisconsin. We got a phone call, we didn't call them. We were referred from Stanford Medical, the University of Madison, Wisconsin, for transplant. So, a year ago, Heidi and I came this way to come and see about getting her a transplant. And we came and they told us, absolutely, you're getting a transplant. Absolutely, absolutely. So before you do, we need you to do all the testing, right? All the pre-lab workups, everything. So we need to make sure that everything will work out. So we started to do that 2 weeks into that testing, we found out she had breast cancer, in addition to her other cancer. So we went ahead and we started the treatment process for breast cancer. In September, she finished all of her chemotherapy, and we were done with breast cancer. And September, I was on a trip, I was in Utah, and she called me and she said, "Hey Joe, I just got put on the transplant list." So at some point, we have to relocate to Wisconsin. She has a husband, 3 kids, 4 kids, but 3 kids at home, 3 young kids at home. And I had a husband and 16-year-old at home, and she says, "We're gonna have to relocate." And I said, "Okay, so when are we gonna do that?" She says, "I don't know, I'll let you know as soon as they tell me." So October comes around and I said, "I think we're going in November." And she says, "I think it's not gonna be November." So November rolls in and I get a phone call. "Joe, we need to go to Wisconsin. We have to relocate. We have to pick up everything, stop everything that we were doing. We have to relocate to Wisconsin for transplant. Because we have to be within 2 hours of our transplant location. So that means packing up, she and I, leaving the kids at home, and transferring down to Wisconsin." And I said, "Is there any chance that there's a transplant house like we saw at Mayo?" So with a little bit of Googling, Heidi's good for that, she found the transplant house. So she made contact and we ended up coming to Restoring Hope. We came here almost 4 months ago. Sunday will be 4 months that I will have been here. Heidi received her transplant 1 month ago today. And she didn't wake up. Liver went in beautifully. Everything was perfect with that. But she went into a deep coma. When she finally awoke from that coma, she wasn't Heidi anymore. She was not going to be returning home. Sunday is when I will be here 4 months. That day I will be taking her back home to her family. So for many of us that are at the house, we come in and we experience moving there, relocating our families. We experience coming and staying in the house, walking into a condition that we don't know anything about. We don't have the finances to afford being able to stay at $100, $150 a night somewhere. And what I've told people here is that you are hosting the world here. Your facilities host the world here. There are more transplants done here than I know of most places. It's pretty incredible. But Heidi was a rare one. And when everybody else shied away because they were afraid of her other complications, the University of Wisconsin did not. And they gave her the amount of hope she needed in the last day. She was more hopeful that day at her recovery and for the opportunity to continue on with her life, and that cancer wouldn't beat her. And my daughter saw her 5 minutes before, and she said, "I've 5 years, I've never seen her that hopeful." That is what you host when you host people at your transplant house. Regardless of whether they're diabetic, like me, or whether or not they have pancreas issues, kidney issues, heart issues, lung issues. We've seen them all come through. If you come in, you get to see the hope. But I also had a lot of grief. In the last month, I've had a lot of grief. And that grief has been supported by the amazing people that are in this home. The staff that they have there, I couldn't have done it without. The bone marrowers, the transplantees, they all support each other. And that's the beauty of what you all host here. It's not something that I can ever be thankful enough for. I am so appreciative of what Restoring Hope provides for us. And I'm so appreciative of what Lions provides for Restoring Hope. You know, I came here, I've been very active in Lions in my life, and it wasn't even a Lion. I was doing so many things with the Lions Club prior to coming to Wisconsin. I didn't become a Lion until I got to Wisconsin. That's when I finally did it. But I've done so many things on the vision front. That my daughter has amblyopia. She became a competitive athlete, went to university with it. I'm a diabetic myself. I'm not even a type 1, I'm not a type 2, I'm a type 1.5. There are only 10% of the diabetic population that actually have my form of diabetes. And it's all coming to a full circle as I've been here, because in the last week, I found out that eventually I will revert to being a type 1 diabetic. When that happens, I then qualify for transplant. And this is the #1 location for transplant. This Alaska girl is coming back. So there are so many things that you guys support, and I really am just immensely grateful, and I want you guys to know that.
Liz, Ben, and Joe, and Heidi. That's why you put the pin on. That's why you put the vest on. That's why you put a jacket on. That's the reason. Incredible stories. This is an everyday occurrence at the house. They do some incredible work, Cindy and her family. Cindy, Eric, Ryan, Steph, and all the Lion volunteers that help there. That's what we do. When I was governor 6 years ago, I was told to make as part of my talk by International President Palmer, tell them how you can expand your reach. And that was one of the big things that I talked about 58 times that year at all the club meetings. What better way to expand your reach than this? It continues to happen. And when you start to think, whenever any of you members start to think that you're an island and why should I give? What will this house do for me? You flush that whole idea, and you think globally, you think big picture, really big picture. She takes in patients, not just in little old Wisconsin, but the whole country. Out of the country. What, 6 different countries you've taken in patients from? Because the UW is world known, world renowned. That's where you go. And that's where we offer the peace and the harmony and the place to come, more than just to lay your head. All of these other things that you can't put your finger on, that Cindy and her family do, is what happens there. That's what you're doing when you put the vest on. You're helping that to continue to work. Okay? We want this to be a program forever, and it will be in the Lions organization, because she can't operate without your help. Okay? She still needs that support to keep the cost low, to keep that nightly rate at $45, a ridiculously low rate, so people can almost afford it. That's where the support comes. That's why you have to give and give and give till it hurts. Because that's the kind of work that she does. To help Liz and Ben and Joe and Heidi and all of the other Liz's and Joes and Bens and Heidis that are out there all over the world that haven't even heard of it yet. They're going to show up at Cindy's door. And that's why we got to expand to 10 more bedrooms. And that's why we will. But we need your help. So please, please keep them in your in your thoughts and prayers and your giving, both on a personal level, on a club level, on a district level, international level, any other level you can think of. It's got a sensitive spot in my heart because during my governor year, we did get a $75,000 grant from LCIM. And we're gonna put that to good use, okay? We've got about $500,000 in the bank to start. It's about a $1.2 to a $1.5 million project before you put the shovel in the ground. So that's a good start, but we need more. We would appreciate more to continue this kind of work. Okay? That's what it's all about. Not the structure, not where it sits, not the everyday operation. It's the people that make it worthwhile. Okay? It doesn't get any better than that. How better of a thing can it be to give back to somebody that is in need? This house will continue forever, one way or another. So you continue to expand your reach, continue to think that way, think globally, because she takes in people from all over the world and will continue to do that marvelous job.